Well, let's go ahead and get started. All you guys on the call, glad you're on the call with us today. My name is Brian McKenzie. I have the privilege to serve with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes as the Director of Football in the Midwest region, but also beyond. This is our 11th edition of the Heart of the Coach, and we do this with all kinds of coaches. And we hope you continue to get on with us and hear what God's doing in the lives of coaches and hear their heart. Today, our special guest is Kurt Warner. Kurt, as you know, is an NFL Hall of Famer and current NFL analyst with the NFL Network, and also a coach at Brophy Prep in Phoenix, Arizona. Kurt, thanks so much for getting on the call with us today.
You got it. My pleasure. My pleasure.
First of all, many of us know you for your football accomplishments. Most people know you for your football accomplishments, but I also know that you're a family man. You value your family outside your relationship with Christ above all things. So during this time of quarantine, due to the coronavirus, many coaches are getting a little stir crazy, wanting to get back into it. So what's something you and your family have done to help you work through this time?
Yeah, we're all going stir crazy too. I got 7 kids. 6 of them are at the house with me and my wife. So we understand the stir crazy part of it. But I mean, it's funny. We get so busy in life, and I get so busy in life that, you miss out on a lot of that, and you kind of forget about those family meals and being able to sit down together and have quality conversations, because everybody's going a million different directions. And so we've actually tried to just take this opportunity and understand we're blessed more than most. And, we're just trying to do our part. We're staying home and we're creating opportunities to be together. So we have a family meal every night together in which we talk about our days. One of my daughters started a quarantine Olympics. So every night we're doing Olympic events at the house. We started playing Jeopardy online. So we split up in teams and we're playing Jeopardy. I got 2 boys that play football, so we've got a little space out in the back. So we're throwing the ball around. We find ourselves working out a lot. About 4 days ago, I picked up The Purpose-Driven Life, and I grabbed my 2 14-year-old daughters and said, let's go through this. Just read a chapter a day, give us a chance to talk about something and develop who they want to be and how they see themselves. And so we are doing anything and everything. Me personally, I've been able to jump on with a lot of coaches at different levels and players at different levels and do a lot of football meetings as well. And so it's really given us an opportunity, I think, to stop and step back from the busyness of life and what we've come to know as the norm, and appreciate our family again and be able to connect as a family again. And it's been really awesome. And, I wonder, like a lot of people, as I've talked to people, how lives are going to change after this. They come to appreciate different things that maybe they took for granted or they didn't really think about before, and how our lives will change moving forward. Will this make us more conscious of certain things that we've been missing?
Yeah. Well, we've got 6 kids, so I can relate. We're not quite 7, but I get you. And then you're exactly right. I think everybody can relate to what you just said. Well, Kurt, just briefly, what's the greatest football game you've ever been a part of, and what made it so great?
Man, I mean, it's always hard to go against Super Bowls, right? Because that's really, what you play for. And I was fortunate. I mean, I played in 3 Super Bowls that were decided in the last, minute of the game. And so it's hard to go pinnacle, 2 best teams vying for the championship, and playing in those 3 games. But if I'm just kind of looking personal and I guess being a little more selfish about it, I would probably say my second to last game that I ever played in was a playoff game against the Packers. My last game that I played at home against or with the Arizona Cardinals. And it was the highest scoring playoff game in the history of the NFL, a 51-45 game. And, kind of just brought me back to, playing in your front yard, or for me, playing arena football where it seemed like there was no defense and it was all about offense and throw the football. For me, I think I threw more touchdown passes than incompletions in that game, but we needed every single one of them. And that to me was what made it fun. It was against a young Aaron Rodgers who, I knew was going to, go on to be one of the greats. And so it was just one of those games that, you could always write a script as a quarterback. It's like, man, I want to throw the ball all over the yard and I want to have to score 50 points to win a game. And so for it to be my second to last game and be one of the best games I ever played, but one of the best games I was ever part of, I would say outside of Super Bowls, that was probably my favorite game that I ever played in the NFL.
Yeah, I remember that game. It was a lot. I'm an old defensive guy, so I didn't appreciate it as much, but
Well, it was decided by a defensive play, right? After all that offense, it was decided by a defensive play. So the nature of the game.
That's great. That's great. Well, we all know coaching is important. You're still coaching. The guys on this call are coaching. I'm still coaching a little bit, but so name two of the most influential coaches you played for, and tell us why they were so influential in your life.
Well, okay, I'll go back to high school first. That I had a coach in high school. He was actually a basketball coach for me and an assistant football coach. And he was impactful just because, the biggest thing was I think he saw beyond what most of us could see. Most of us could see in the moment. And, we lived for that moment and we let that moment define everything that we were doing. He was a coach that kind of transcended that for me and got me to see bigger pictures, got me to see beyond, pushed me in ways that no other coach had pushed me before, right? I mean, a lot of times, athlete like myself at that age, was one of the best athletes on our team. So a lot of times you kind of just rest on that. But he was a coach that pushed me because he saw a potential in me that was probably even greater than what I saw in myself. And the bottom line that I always think with coaches that, there's different kinds of influence you can have as a coach. Obviously, you can have an influence on, whatever you're teaching and the experience you bring or the knowledge that you bring. But for me, the most influential coaches for me were guys that I knew had my interest in mind at all times. That he was always seeing, okay, it's not about whether we're going to win this game or not. It's about how can I make this player better? How can I get him to reach his full potential? And that was who he was in high school. I shared a story in my Hall of Fame induction, about him, where I remember playing in a pickup game, practice game, and I felt like I was dominating the game, and everybody else kind of messing around. And I remember, he was a coach that would get fired up at times. I remember him blowing the whistle. And I'm like, yeah, it's about time, coach. You need to yell at these guys because they're not playing very well. So he blew the whistle, and he comes, running out onto the court and screaming and hollering. And, I'm kind of looking around like, yeah, you guys deserve this. And I ended up realizing he was actually yelling at me. And I'm thinking, why are you yelling at me, coach? Like, I'm the one that's out here playing the best. I'm dominating this game. And his message basically to me was that I'm watching you play and you're not playing up to your potential. I don't care what everybody else is doing. I don't care what the circumstances are around you. Take every moment to be the best that you can be. And, it kind of took me back, like, really seriously? Aren't you seeing what else is going on? But it was a great lesson for me to go, he's so right. That too often we gauge ourselves based on what's going on around us and the circumstances around us, instead of being able to focus in on what am I doing and how can I better myself and how can I make sure that I'm pushing myself to the limit every time out. And so there was a lot of lessons like that he taught me at a young age that would carry with me. And then I'll say the other guy was probably Dick Vermeil. And it was funny, I was just doing an interview with somebody about Dick yesterday. And they asked me, okay, so how long were you with Dick? How long did he coach you? And in my mind, I feel like Dick Vermeil coached me for like the majority of my NFL career. And when I go back and think about it, he coached me for 2 years. He retired after our first Super Bowl. And it almost took me back when I was thinking about that. I'm like, seriously? He was only with me for 2 years? But, he had such a deep impression upon me. And the impression came from his compassion and love for each and every one of his players. Is that I know he had a big job to do, and you always know a coach has to be able to manage, and success is part of it, especially at that age or at that level. But he cared so deeply about every one of his players that you truly felt like he had your best interest in mind over anything that he was trying to accomplish at any given time. Another story, I remember we're in, the middle of training camp, and he brings us all up after practice one day. And in typical Dick Vermeil fashion, he starts breaking down and crying in the middle of, all these men that are trying to make this NFL team. And he shared with us that he had to release, our fourth string tight end. And for most people, it's like, well, that's part of the job. He wasn't going to help us. We knew from a physical standpoint that he wasn't going to be a part of our team. But he's up there emotional and crying, going, man, I hated to have to do this because I love the man that I'm talking about. And yeah, it was what I had to do as a coach. I get that. But he was so attached to his players and wanted the best for every single player that he had. That just, you could feel that. And you wanted to go out and play for that guy. And you wanted to be around that guy. And it infiltrated our locker room. A lot of people ask me, what was the difference with that 99 team in the locker room that you had? And how were you able to have so much success? And I think it really was a trickle-down effect, that there was such love and admiration in that locker room for one another, that we all connected in a unique way, no matter what our backgrounds were or what we believed, what our faith was, whatever that was, it may have been different about us. We connected, and I think it was just a trickle-down effect from Dick, that he loved us so much and cared about all of us so much that became kind of what our locker room and what our organization was built on. And it led us to places that, teams have never gone before. And so those were a couple coaches. And again, I've had a lot of coaches that have had impact, but a couple coaches just based on, how they made me feel about myself and the unselfishness they had as coaches, that separated them from other people and have me, when you go through life and you think back to people that impacted you or coaches that impacted you, those are by far the two guys that I think of lessons that they taught me or different experiences we shared together that really made an imprint on me, that carry with me, whether I'm being a father or a husband or a coach or whatever that may be.
Yeah, Kurt, you said something there about how he made you feel. Bart Ehrman, in his book, Inside Out Coaching, asked one of the questions is, as a coach, how do I make my players feel? Or ask your player, how's it feel to be coached by me? Mm-hmm. So important. Well, now you're a coach. Right. Been coaching here for a few years and in the Phoenix area. And so now that you're a coach, how do you want your relationship with Jesus to impact your players?
Well, I think, whether it's a coach, parent, father, whether I'm on TV, it doesn't really matter. I want my relationship, or more importantly, I think my character and life to reflect Jesus. And so that's what I want people to see, whether they know it's quote unquote Jesus or not. That's the kind of model that I want to be, for my players and everybody. I want to carry myself, with honor and with class, with respect, with humility, all those things that represent, what faith means to us and what Jesus did, on earth. And so that to me is kind of an overriding thing in everything that I do, is that it's primary to me that I set the example and that I represent my Savior the way he deserves to be represented. And it doesn't matter where that is, but that's kind of the goal, when I'm coaching is, I want them to see those same attributes in my life. Whether I ever mention my faith or ever mention Jesus to them, I want that to be a reflection of that. And I always feel like that's kind of the goal is, as we reflect those things, it intrigues people to go, okay, what's different about that guy? What is it that makes that guy live like that or act like that? And so, again, like with everything, I try to let it override everything I do. I can promise you I'm not perfect with that, especially as a coach, when you get fired up on the sideline and you're coaching these guys and you want the best for them. And so you're trying to push them and do those things. I don't know if I always model it perfectly, but that is definitely my goal, is that, I always want that to supersede what anybody sees about me. If I'm a great coach, I still want them to see the person first. Great player, I want them to remember the person first. And so that's kind of how I try to model my faith in all the different walks of life that I have.
And that didn't happen overnight. So you got to foster that relationship. So in the midst of a busy schedule, and of course in the fall for you, it's coaching and being an analyst for the NFL Network, and obviously being a father and a husband, all those kind of things. How do you foster that relationship in the midst of a busy schedule?
Yeah, I think, we all at different times try to create routines, whether that's, prayer or whether that's, reading the Bible or focusing, time here, time there. I think the thing that I try to do more than anything is be conscious of Jesus all day long. And so, not just go, hey, I'm going to set aside 15 minutes in the morning because I have 15 minutes and I can get up earlier, 15 minutes in the evening, which again, those things are great. Start, end your day, do those different things. But to me, I try to make sure I'm conscious of it all day long, that he kind of infiltrates my thoughts all day long, no matter what I'm doing. Whether I'm driving to the grocery store or whether I'm heading to practice in the morning or whether I'm in the middle of an interaction with, coaches or players during the day. I think just being conscious of, his presence in my life and having that reminder upon me all day long has always been my greatest way of staying in the moment in regards to my faith. Because I still think sometimes, again, as great as it can be, spending 15 minutes aside in the morning, I think it's easy to go, okay, that's my 15 minutes. And then we start our day and we don't think about it again until the evening when we go to sleep, or the next morning when we do that. And so, I've always felt, like I'll do that when I go to movies and I'm watching a movie and I'm kind of watching a movie going, okay, what's God trying to show me in this movie? And many times I've picked up sermons as I'm watching movies, or I'm, going through different interactions. And so that to me has kind of been my key over the years is, make sure I'm conscious of him all day long, and take, just maybe sometimes it's moments and seconds to stop and recognize that, and then be able to move forward in my day with that consciousness in whatever environment I may be in at that particular time. And so, I think I have a lot of the routines that a lot of people have, or I try to fit them into my schedule. But that to me has been the best way to do it, is to try to recognize him in each and every moment throughout the day, or each and every encounter I have throughout the day. And it helps me to be able to reflect him a little bit better when I've got him right there in the forefront of my mind.
Yeah, I love it. I remember back in 1990 hearing Roger Staubach, another Hall of Fame quarterback, talk about him he never missed getting his one verse a day. Now, he wasn't just saying I read one verse. He was saying I'm trying to live out one verse a day.
Right.
I'm thinking about it. So that's so helpful. And I think you're right. Sometimes we're so regimented as coaches, we kind of can compartmentalize those things instead of let it flow through the day. So thanks for sharing that. Well, you're one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, arguably. You're in the Hall of Fame as a quarterback. So what do you think is the biggest key or keys to help coaches develop good quarterback play?
Well, I think any coach, it doesn't really matter, obviously, the quarterback, because obviously there's uniqueness to the quarterback position, and details become so important. But, I just feel like the job of a coach is to be able to recognize the skills and talents of their players. I've been around a lot of coaches in my day, and there's a lot of coaches that kind of say, okay, this is what we do, this is how I coach, and you got to fit into what we do. And I think the key, to being a great coach is being able to recognize and identify the talents and skills of your players, and then be able to gauge your offense or how you coach or what drills you do around that. I've been doing a lot of meetings with, a lot of quarterbacks, and that's the first thing they're asking me is like, okay, how did you prepare, when you were playing in the NFL? What was your regimen like? And the first thing I always tell them is, before you can take my plan or my preparation schedule and apply it to you, you got to figure out who you are as a quarterback. You got to figure out what you do well, what's going to separate you from other guys, or maybe even your weaknesses. And you've got to gauge your prep and your plan around those things. You can't just go, hey, Kurt Warner did this, so I'm going to do that. Hey, Manning did this, I'm going to do that. Because you might not be the same guy that I am. And I think that becomes vital as a coach, to be able to recognize those differences and to be able to coach those differences, to be able to change, whether it's your offense or the drills that you do based on what this guy needs to become what you think he can become, or to help him to move to the next level. And so that to me is what I try to think about, because I got a lot of different guys, even on a high school football team. Last year, I had two quarterbacks. They were completely different in how they saw the game and how they played the game. And so I had to switch back and forth between different drills or different activities that we did. One time playing to one quarterback, the other time playing to the other quarterback. And so that to me is what coaching is all about. It's being able to recognize what needs to be done to further the advancement of, of your players, no matter what position that is. When it comes to quarterback, I think there's certain things that I could, point to and say, these things are vital to become a good passer. But more importantly, I think that's what it's about when it's coaching, is recognize those things and then gear your plan to what you feel can make your team or this player better at what they're trying to do.
Yeah, great. Well, you are again a former Super Bowl MVP, but it didn't start off that way. I mean, you were cut by your first NFL team, went to the Arena League, came back, right? So what would you say to coaches about how to handle players at various skill levels? How do you treat them?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's so many different ways to look at it. Like being a high school coach now, there's different ways to have to look at your players, right? Because what I've come to realize, over my years of coaching in high school is that there's a lot of players that are out there for different reasons, right? Not everybody's out there necessarily to win a state championship. Not everybody's out there to get a scholarship. Some kids just want to be able to put that jersey on Friday evenings, when their friends come out and sit in the stands. Some of them just want to have a fun experience out there. And so, what I've learned over the years is again, just like you have to recognize skill set, you also have to recognize why your kids are out there. And again, this is more at the high school level for me. As you get to the higher levels, obviously more of them have, the focus on wanting to be there, wanting to be successful, maybe wanting to move on. But in high school, to me, it's really come down to, okay, why are these kids here? What are they trying to do? And then how can I give them the best experience for what they want that's possible? And that can be hard and that can be frustrating, right? Because you're out there and you want to be successful and there's 5 guys on your team that want to get scholarships and that want to win a state championship and that it's really important to them. I get that. But I also have to understand these are high school kids that not every one of them has the same dream that I had. And so my goal just becomes trying to identify why they're there and what do they want out of it. And then trying to give them the best experience I can for what they're trying to get out of it. To make sure that every kid leaves going, man, that coach helped me to have a great season. Or that coach helped me to further my skill set so I could move on to the next level. And, so again, I think so much of it is being able to connect and recognize what it is about your players that makes them unique or different. And what it is that you can do to help them wherever they're at, in that situation. And I know it's hard, and, I think one of the things that, that I benefit from is that, I kind of had my time playing and success on the field. And so as I take on, the job of being a coach, I don't ever look at it from my perspective anymore. Like, I don't care how many games we win. And I don't care if we win a state championship, because that's not part of my resume. I'm out there to help the kids get what they want to get. And, my quarterback from a couple years ago was the freshman All-American quarterback at USC. And so I had a guy like him, Keaton Slovis, who, when I was with him, and he wanted to be great. He wants to play in the NFL. And so I had to coach and push him differently than other players that I had that were just out there to go, man, I'm a good player and I want to have a great season, but man, I'm not looking to play in the NFL. That's not my goal. And so that to me, I think becomes, a huge key for a coach is to understand that, depending on where what level you're at, is who are these kids that you're coaching and why are they out there and how can you make it the best experience for them? Because we also know, even if you're at the college level, you understand there's going to be a bunch of guys on your team that are never going to move on, right? They're going to have 4 years of playing football and that's it. So my goal is to make sure those 4 years are the best 4 years of their life. And then they might have 2 that could maybe move on. Now my goal as a coach has to be to do whatever I can to push them. So because they have that ability, that I don't stymie that ability and affect them negatively from being able to chase their dream. So to me, I think that kind of becomes the goal for me, is identifying every individual, what they want out of this, and how I, as a coach, can give them the best experience in that area that I possibly can.
Yeah, great. Well, relationships is what the game's all about, is relationships. And if you know them well, you can do that. Well, I got a little football question for you here, a little hypothetical game. All right.
All right.
It's your 1999 Rams against the 2019 Chiefs.
Okay.
You're down by 4 on the 10-yard line. It's 64-60, super high scoring game. Right? Down by 4. All
The way
right.
I like it.
Yeah. 10 yard, 5 seconds to go. What play are you going with, or what player are you trying to get the ball to win the game?
Man, it's such a great question. And what play am I using? Okay. So, I mean, again, I have a couple different plays, but
You got a whiteboard back there if you want to draw it up.
I do have a whiteboard back here, and I could do that. Where'd you say I was at on the 5-yard line or the
10-yard line? 5 seconds to go.
That makes it harder. Being on the 10-yard line. Where's mine? But here's the funny thing, because a lot of it depends on where I'm actually going to throw the ball, right? Am I going to throw it into the end zone, or am I going to have to throw it short of the end zone? The good thing is with that team, I had all kinds of great players in which I could throw the ball to. All right. So this is the play that I would run. All right. So me being a wide receiver, a quarterback that likes to throw it, I'm going to go 4 wides here. All right. And so I am going to stack it up here, because I always feel like it's a little easier to stack things up and create the leverage that I want. All right. So this little play right here. All right. Okay, so it's a lot of players or coaches will run this play. All right. So really just a skinny post here with a flat corner route that we used to run all the time. So trying to use up the corner and really hit this corner here, but depending on the coverage, allows me the ability to throw a skinny post. If that safety's in the middle of the field, or if there's a safety inside playing like a quarters look, a lot of times they're going to squat at the goal line, so it gives me a shot over the top to throw that. Now, I know that most teams aren't going to press from the 10-yard line when, you're in a game time situation like this. So you're a lot of times going to have, off coverage on the outside. So a play that we used to like to run is what we would call a 7-stop. So can almost promise you that we're going to get outside leverage by that corner if we're in a stack look. So we can push 2-3 yards in the end zone, and then this guy's going to stop here. And then off of that, I'm just going to run a wheel route here so I can make sure I get into the end zone. So again, focusing on the idea of what they're going to do, what teams like to do in these kinds of situations. I'm going to give myself an advantage on every coverage. But this is one of my favorite routes, because you can gain an advantage against any coverage pretty much on that side. And it gives you opportunities to throw up and over and force. So I'm a big guy that when you're attacking a defense, that I always believe that you got to force defenders to cover width and depth. You can't let them just cover one or the other. And so I'm going to force these guys to have to cover width and depth so I can create movement, which allows me a little bit more spacing to be able to drive the football in and make plays. And I got weapons all over the place. So I'm not worried about who I can throw to. I don't have to worry about any one of these throws that if I throw it to one of these guys, they're all good enough players that they're gonna make the play for me.
Yeah, love it. Oh, great. Well, Kirk, really appreciate you giving your time up today and encouraging these coaches. But we just want to give you one last opportunity. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to encourage all these coaches on this call? So there's college coaches, high school coaches, probably junior high coaches on this call. How could you encourage kind of parting words to the coaches on the call?
I think the biggest thing that I would say, and it kind of goes back to to what I was talking about with some of those coaches that impacted me. is just let your players know that they're the most important thing on a daily basis. That to me is what it's all about. And, I apply that at home, being a father too, right? Because you got to make different decisions and you got to, you got to deal with a lot of different people as you're going. But, the coaches that truly impacted me and that I wanted to battle for were those that I knew always had my best interest in mind, first and foremost, that I always knew they cared about me. One thing that we always preach, when I'm coaching is, because obviously you're going to watch film and there's going to be times where people make mistakes. And so one thing that I always preach is, hey guys, we're always going to attack a problem. We're never attacking a person. And so I always am trying to let my guys know that sometimes you're going to be at the forefront of that problem, but never take it personal. And that's kind of always the message that I want to send is that, man, I'm only pointing this out because I want the best for you. I want you to be successful. And that's what I would encourage, is to make sure your players know that on a daily basis. Even after, you have to yell at them or you get on them on the sideline, to make sure at the end of the day you go put your arm around them and go, hey, I still love you. And the only reason I'm on you is because I want the best for you. And I think that's the most important thing for me as a coach and why I coach, is to be able to have an impact on these players' lives and to let them know they've got an advocate in me every single day. And that advocate could be, learning the game of football and advancing their career. But more importantly, it's an advocate that, and no matter what's going on, buddy, I'm here for you. How can I help you? I want you to know that this is way bigger than the game of football. It's just way bigger than X's and O's. And that would always be my encouragement, because I think oftentimes we can get caught up in the game and in having success and in doing and accomplishing what we want to accomplish, that we forget about why we're coaching and what coaching is really all about. And that's being a mentor and, an advocate for those individuals that we're coaching. And so I think that would be, my encouragement to everybody is, once again, be conscious of that as much as you can throughout your coaching experience, that, hey, did I make sure that my coach or my players knew that I loved them, that I was there for them, that, the only reason that I was pushing them was because I want them to be the best. And so that would be my encouragement to anybody that coaches, anybody that's a father, and again, coaching, fathering, all those different things, a leader in business is the same thing. I think the greatest leaders are the ones that earn that trust and respect because people following them know, and they're doing this for me. They're not doing it to, get another award or put a plaque on their mantle. They're doing it to help me be great in life and be great on the football field. And that would be my encouragement to all those guys out there that are coaching, that I appreciate you guys giving your time, because a lot of times it can be a thankless job and it can be a lot more hours than we expect it to be. But just like me, I think back to the people that were coaching me when I was that age and the impression that they made and the way that carried me through or pushed me on to the things I accomplished is pretty incredible. Even though you might never hear from them again, you might never contact, they might never mention your name on a Hall of Fame podium. But the kind of impact that we can have on young men is incredible. And, I can speak to those people that influenced me at that age. And the ones that I truly remember and that impacted me are the ones that I knew were invested in me. So that would be my encouragement to everybody out there.
Yeah. Kurt, I really appreciate it. What a great encouragement for all of us. And thanks for your time today. I want to speak to all the rest of the coaches on this call. Just to remind you that we do these about 3 times a week. And the Heart of the Coach, tomorrow we actually have Jeff Grimes, who's the offensive coordinator at BYU, is going to be our guest. Next Tuesday is Van Malone, assistant head coach at K-State. Next Wednesday, Jason Washington, safeties coach at Mississippi State. And then next Friday, Dean Hood, the new head coach at Murray State University. And look for those things coming probably across your email or Twitter or something like that. Hope you all can join us. Again, Kurt, thanks for your time today. Really appreciate it, brother.
You got it. My pleasure. Take care, everybody. God bless. Stay safe.
All right, God bless. Thanks, Kurt.